Welcome everyone, Costin here with a further discussion about Total War Warhammer free range problems. This is a reversal from my previous battle. Over here I have an Imperial army. It's got crossbows, huntsmen, though I can't see them because they've got stock, Hellstorm rocket batteries, mortars, the electric count variant, the one that doesn't do friendly fire, a bunch of spearmen, the Eldred's Guard, and great swords, along with Karl Franz on Deathclaw. Over here, on my side, I have a bunch of Chosen. Not necessarily too many, but these armies, technically in terms of cost, are about the same. Though one should be much better than the other in this kind of situation, and that is the Imperial army. As to the why, it's because they've got the strong choke point, a lot of ranged units, artillery, Karl Franz, and so on. They should genuinely win this battle. The army I have here is not necessarily the most ideal for dealing with this kind of situation. An army of monsters would do much better. An army of giants would do significantly better in this situation, or trolls, or dragon ogres. But let's take Chosen. This is reversal compared to the battles I've shown already, or the battle I showed yesterday on this exact battle. So as I approach the enemy, the range fire starts intensifying. We've got huntsmen. They don't have the best armor piercing, but I did want to show huntsmen because people were saying, "Oh, crossbows will not shoot like that." Well, in Warhammer they do shoot pretty much the same as bowmen. But anyway, we get in melee, and I start using abilities. I'm going to avoid using the purple sun or the burning head, and instead just use buffing ability. So the melee lines are engaged. Now, what I want you to pay attention is to what's going to happen to the ranged units of the Empire. And they're doing nothing. Or a lot of them are doing nothing. If I look at them, you can see that they're not even firing. They're either going to get obstructed, like this unit of huntsmen here, or they're just not going to have orders. It feels like it's a combination of AI behavior and, simply put, AI behavior and game behavior. Game behavior is that the game will not, in a lot of situations, allow you to fire over here. Even though there's certainly plenty of room, plenty of Chaos Warriors for them to shoot. The main strength of the Imperial army over here would actually be, like, they're gonna shoot at Archeon because they're at a distance, but they're not gonna shoot in a melee situation. But why is this happening? Well, it's because of certain changes Creative Assembly has made. At one point, like you can see, a lot of these guys are being obstructed, the artillery's not doing anything. And as a player, this is something that happens to you and AI. One of the things that some people who give criticism miss, especially the guys, "Oh, you don't know how to play," to which I reply, this is not merely an issue that affects the player, it's a major issue that affects AI. It's actually something I've noticed in a lot of the campaigns I've played since I really started putting in a lot of hours in this game with Immortal Empires, that range units seem particularly useless. The AI range units seem particularly useless. Like, there's so many situations where the AI range units just, well, literally do nothing. Look at their ammunition. They haven't been really shooting in this battle, have they? And as a result of that scenario, the Chosen over here are just going to gobble them up and win the day. As might be expected, fair enough, this is a powerful Chaos army, but the way the Empire would deal with such an army would be ranged units, especially in a choke point like this. Like, a choke point like this is pretty ideal for the Empire, but because a lot of their units can't fire crossbows, huntsmen, doesn't really matter, they're just gonna end up losing the battle. And this is without me bringing things like hell cannons or monstrous units, or using, hey, let's pop a Searing Doom right in the middle of that, right? For instance. And I haven't even gone to snipe Karl Franz, because that would certainly kill them. And there, he's dead. And now they're gonna break. So there was, why is this happening? Well, there was a point in Warhammer 3. I think this has been maybe an issue from the start. But it's certainly been aggravated, I think, ever since Creative Assembly introduced certain changes. They introduced certain changes to range units that ended up going very badly. So what happened is that Creative Assembly at one point with Warhammer 3 apparently, they introduced a change in the game where ranged units just became ridiculously powerful. Where, like, you could blob up your ranged units on top of your melee units, and your ranged units could shoot through the melee units and absolutely decimate the enemy without any friendly fire, loss in accuracy, and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, they reversed that, but I think since then, the ranged of the game has just ended up broken. Like, look at this fight. It's been an entire fight. It's basically been fought by the melee unit, purely by the melee units. And yes, the Empire will lose this, because much of their money, much of the gold value that they have in their army is put in their artillery. It's put in their ranged units. For a point. And, like, if you're an Empire player, you're certainly going to invest in things like that. Or maybe Outriders, Pistoliers, Grenadiers, all that kind of stuff, right? Outriders, grenade launchers, all that. Given how useless range feel like right now. But the AI, one of the things I've noticed in a lot of the campaigns I play is that once I engage with my melee frontline, the enemy, I've won the battle, because their ranged units are just not going to do anything until it's too late. And when they do start doing something, like, their effectiveness goes down. And keep in mind, this is still a relatively open field battle, right? And the units I have here are just not the best. But I've won this battle because, well, effectively the enemy army did nothing. Right? Let's fight it until then, because I want to look at the post-battle screen. The damage done by individual units. They can figure out, based on their ammo levels, that how useful they've been in this entire battle situation. Now, sure, the Empire would generally have magic, but no Chaos Warrior, no player of this game would be so stupid enough to attack a choke point like that. Certainly not the way I did it. Like, that's the thing. The tactics I used were very favorable to the Empire in a lot of ways. If I wanted to cheese things and make my life easier, they would just waste their ammunition and Archeon and use Burning Heads and Purple Suns very easily. But yeah, it's pretty broken. It doesn't work very well. And that's not even the final form of the Chaos Army, or the best Chaos Army that you can bring in this field. But looking at the situation, you can see that the Hellstorms, the Mortars, did very, very little damage. Now, the Great Swords didn't do a lot either, to be honest. The range units, for all their limited value, did do more damage, but a lot of the battlefield, they just sat there and did nothing. Karl Franz did the most damage. That Hellstorm probably did very high damage, but a lot of the... But then they ended up spending a lot of the battle just being AFK. Plain and simple. Whereas we compare to these guys and the gold value that they end up doing, yeah, it's a bit higher. But, I mean, the Empire doesn't really have other choices, right? In a straight-up frontline fight like this, what could they do, like, in this kind of situation? Because their only really good options are, like, Great Swords, right? And Great Swords just are not going to be enough to stand up to these guys, because they're not as good enough. You need... The Empire is a high combined arms force, right? They've got artillery, range units, cavalry. Cavalry wouldn't have worked in that situation. Range units don't work. Artillery doesn't work. And as a player, you have solutions to this, but the AI doesn't. And that's an open field battle. For all the limited effects of the checkpoint, still an open field battle where range kind of does work, or works a lot of the time. It gets a lot worse when you start thinking about siege battles. Far worse when it gets to siege battles, because there's elevation issues, line of sight issues, all that. And I find myself in a situation where I never want to fight with a ranged army in an actual settlement. I'll gladly take an open field battle with my ranged army, especially if the enemy, especially if the enemy has a melee army. Like, that's one of the worst situations. Like, don't fight the battle unless it's gunpowder units. But that's because gunpowder units are fairly broken at this particular point in the game. How broken? Well, I guess I need to demonstrate that particular point as well. So, but before I do that, let me show you what would be a much better Chaos Army in this kind of situation. right? First off, let me go to the checkpoint battle again. The Dark Mouth Pass. And choose a different army. What would be workable much better there? Now, Chosen are pretty good units, don't get me wrong. They're very good units. But they're not necessarily the best choice. Though in that case, because there's... Like, one of the things you might notice, though, is like, Chosen have fewer models to them, right? Only 80 as opposed to the 100 of Chaos Warriors, or even more for... Marauders with great weapons. So by having fewer models, they actually benefit from the unwillingness of the AI to shoot in a melee fight. If there's more models, ranged units are more willing to shoot. So there is issues with that. But that leads to the logical conclusion. What's the logical conclusion? Chaos Trolls. No joke. No fucking joke. I'm not trolling or anything like that. Things like Chaos Trolls, Chaos Giants, yeah. Even if I were to give, and even if I were to give the Empire a bunch of halberds, let's just add a bunch of halberds, why not? To the Imperial Army. Fight the battle again, see what happens. You know what's gonna happen. I know what's gonna happen. But let's just see how ridiculously stupid this whole thing is gonna be. And how useless range units, the artillery, the huntsmen. Huntsmen are anti-large, who should be dedicated, who should be designed for this kind of battle. Let's see how useless they're actually going to end up being in this situation. Alright. So the giants who have been long considered a meme in Total War are going to win this battle for me. But let's charge in. Castrolls and giants and Archeon. Let's see what happens here. The ranged units do some damage as they approach. Not enough damage though. And then we engage in the melee. And again, the archers stop working. Now, it's not like they could defeat this, to be clear with you. But you can see the problem, that it's actually getting worse, the problem range. Like the artillery there is being ordered to shoot. And the way they're moving is like the kind of movement you get when you try and order it to shoot and it just doesn't have an angled fire or Hellstorm. And this is the kind of situation that just keeps happening again and again and again. And you end up in this scenario where a Chaos Armor, like I could have just taken literal regular trolls against this army and won with ease. One of the things I noticed when Immortal Empires came out is like I was playing a Cola campaign. That's one of the first campaigns I actually started playing. And I really noticed, holy shit, my trolls are amazing. Well, they are. And now the enemy army is completely broken, routed, and shattered. Barely took any real damage. Is this a skirmish battle, or am I in the campaign with a lot of items fighting a tier 1 army? Now, the issue that gets created in this scenario in campaigns is if you're playing a melee focused faction like Chaos Warriors or factions with strong melee rosters, one, you should always use those melee rosters for the greenskins, that's nasty skulkers, biguns, black orcs, that kind of stuff. Trolls are really good right now, like extremely good, but they're good specifically because, well, this is happening. Single entities or fewer entities haven't just dominate the game style, and it's over. An entire army just absolutely bloody annihilated. And again, you can't just say, oh, they did a lot of damage. They did not do a lot of damage. Those crossbows, some of those crossbows barely shot at all. That's the issue. It's not like, oh, the units were too strong for them to deal with. The armies are about even gold cost. Right? So, what more is there to say? Of course, a lot of the Imperial power is in that artillery, the huntsmen, all that, and they just end up sitting around doing nothing. I think if you're playing in the Empire, what do you do against a massive monster army like this? Die, probably. But we'll get... but that's only part of the equation. Gonna switch to a siege. Gonna keep the Empire as... Gonna keep the Empire... But I'm going to remove the artillery. This is just for demonstration purposes, not an actual battle. And I'm going to go as the Empire myself. Or we could go Skaven. I feel like Skaven. No, let's go Vampire Coast. Because they're the ones that do suffer the most from all of this. So as the Vampire Coast, some of your core units are, or many of your core units are gunpowder units. Pirate gunnery mobs, right? Hand cannons, deck gunners, handguns, all that good stuff. You obviously do have some artillery, Queen Bess, mortars. Mortars in particular are extremely good. I'd recommend, like, if you're playing the Vampire Coast, it would be my strong recommendation that you use them, because they're one of the few things that are gonna do anything for you in the campaign. Going to dismount Karl Franz. This is just for demonstration purposes. But if we fight a siege battle, and this is something that keeps happening with gunpowder units, any kind of elevation kills them. Like the first issue that I showed is an issue about how ranged units act in relation to melee units, to blobs, and it's an implementation of creative assembly to prevent the blobbing up of melee units on top of ranged units and having ranged units being effective. It's a deliberate decision to prevent people from abusing certain behaviors. This issue is the second issue is specifically with handgunner units, with gunpowder units. They just end up feeling very useless in a campaign. So handgunners of the Empire, the Vampire Cove situation, all that. So here's Altdorf, or rather what the game says is Altdorf. I'm not quite certain. There's a gap in the wall, so I don't have to deal with the wall defenses. This is not dealing with the siege. This is just to demonstrate the the gunpowder unit situation. So what we're gonna do, and first, and you can see one of the first issues. There's a bit of a hill, right? They're not gonna be able to get the shots out there so effectively, let alone to take down the gate. All right, so I'm looking to destroy that wall. And now I am just gonna move my units ahead. Okay. So they dealt with that. Let's move them closer. Let's put the deck gunners, one of the unit of deck gunners, right on the gate there. Another unit of deck gunners by the wall, and these two over here. Will they shoot? Well, they might lure the enemy. That's one of the things that tends to happen there. The AI does want to prevent you from crossing in there, so I just need to deal with these guys. But let's say I put these guys to fire well. will they shoot at the unit of spearmen that are right behind the gate? The open gate, I might add. No, they will not. What if I order them to shoot? Well, they're gonna shamble through the gate and get themselves killed. Let me just summon something there. To deal with Mr. Carl France. Now, it is bizarre that the AI does tend to do that kind of stuff. Now look at this engagement though. They will shoot if there's a perfectly clear line of sight, but a lot of the time they won't do it. This keeps happening. And if I move these guys here, where they have clear line of sight, do you think they'll shoot at the units there? Now, if I order them to do it, yeah, they will. But if I just put them in idle, there's a very high chance that they'll shoot, but then they'll stop shooting and then they'll shoot again. What about the hand cannon units? Well, they shoot. Well, maybe, maybe not. They might get some shots off. If I give them the order to do it. But yeah, their effectiveness is just incredibly limited there. What if I move them by the open gate? It's a very iffy proposition, and if you're playing Vampire Coast, here's the point. Using these units, any of these units in an actual siege is a pointless affair. Remember, the enemy doesn't have any defensive any range units over here to counter me with. They don't have any towers to counter me with. If I give the order for them to attack there, like, what are you doing, my dude? What? Let's actually see what happens. And yeah, that's something that happens with rattling gunners, which is ales, all that. A lot of the time you just see them not working. Is pretty fucking shit. Eventually, I guess they'll move in. At least they're moving. What's worse about the crossbowmen and huntsmen is that they won't even do this, so you can realize, oh shit, they're gonna get themselves killed. They just stand there with an attack order doing nothing. This is so hilarious. Oh man. Oh man. I'm not in control anymore of the game. Oh boy. Holy fuck. What the? I just gave them a simple order to attack this unit, right? The great sword unit. And it's like, no. They won't even move anymore, they're so bugged. Okay, let's try again. Here comes the cloud show. Oh my gosh. So they just sit there with an attack move. Or we are the messengers of peace. We do not fire. Emphasis that they have fire well enabled. Let's bring a unit with handguns. That was just so hilarious. I've seen really horrible behavior here and things that I'm just like, what is going on? But I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Not with my own units. Okay, fire well. While they fire, Okay, no. Let's move him. Let the dancing begin. Might they pass through the gate? No. Okay. We've seen enough. You get the point. Gunpowder units are... I apologize. That's so fucking hilarious. What the fuck? How did, like, I understand it's a beta, but how did this pass? Like, what? Just what the hell is going on there? Okay. Ooh, enough fun. Right, enough fun laughing about broken gunpowder units. Holy crap. That was bad. I think I'm gonna need a bit to recover from that. But final thing. Defenders. Let's talk about actual archer units in a siege. I'll give this guy, so that's 6 of them that I've given. Let's go 8, let's say 9, right? An advantage, a decent defensive army, right? Same setup. Just a prince. I'll take Tyrion personally. Where is he? And I'll take 6 units of archers. Alright, nothing too big of a deal. Tyrion of Calidor. 6 versus 9. Same units, same difficulty. Right. Let's see what happens. And we get into the final problem. The siege problem in general. Not the gunpowder unit problem, the siege problem. Do yourself a favor though when dealing with gunpowder units. Just don't try them and use them in a siege. You're just like playing the game wrong clearly at the moment. Like if you're playing Vampire Ghost, just get mortars and use those in heroes to win the battle. That's because your gunpowder units are not gonna be able to handle it. Oh boy. And if I move them inside, like obviously if you move units inside, they'll get killed. But siege issue. Okay, so I've got this army of 6 archers with light armor, Tyrion. He's not gonna be used. He could win this entire battle on his own. Sure, fair enough, whatever, but that's not the point. I brought him here to mop up. Move these archers into a locked formation and let's attack. And see what ends up happening here. Well, the AI has number superiority, but it ain't gonna matter. Why? Because I've got concentration of fire. Now, units on walls will get an advantage in range, but it doesn't matter because their capability of shooting is not going to be so great, and you're always going to end up in a situation where, well, one, the AI derps out in ridiculous fashion. So over here, a lot of the enemy units, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, already are finished, right? Like, the problem with range units in a city is this. You can't concentrate. And this is a good city. Like, let me emphasize this point. It doesn't get better than these wide open spaces that this city has. This is a good city for you to use. But it's pointless. You're just going to end up losing with a ranged army. Because if you're fighting in a siege. Keep in mind, I am at the disadvantage here, so I'll end up losing here. I could have done better with that initial volley. That actually cost me a lot. But look at the damage that was done here. That's because even if you deploy properly, the best you could do as the defender is deploy 3 units, maybe 4 units here on the wall. But despite having more than a third of my numbers, they could very easily lose. And in fact, they've likely lost if I concede the defeat here in the battle. right? If we look at the situation, I lost 400. No, he actually lost less, but damage-wise, in terms of the overall damage-wise, because losses are not necessarily representative of damage, right? They did 6,000 damage. They did 500, 4,000. Okay. I think all of my units 8,000, 4,000, all that. Like you sincerely punch above your weight in a siege situation. Now let me do that again and show you what the problem is again. Because you can, one day I will derp out, but even if it doesn't derp out, even if it does things properly, like you find a blind spot in a wall, and this is what makes sieges such an insufferable situation. Because the best way to fight the siege, don't attack the walls, don't scale the walls, don't build rams or ladders or siege towers or anything like that. Don't send units on the walls ever, like at any point. Clear them out with ranged units. If you've got a melee army, ignore the walls, break down the gates, smash your guys in, and wipe them out. Alright, here there is this dead zone. Even if there were towers here, like even if there were towers at every corner, it still wouldn't really matter. Though the towers would do some damage.
Orders understood.
But here's instead what I'm going to do. Right? Move my units, max range. I'm outranged. And just snipe them one at a time as they come on the wall. And just wait for it. Then the AI spazzes out, doesn't know how to do it, even if you're a player though. If you're a player, you don't want to defend the walls. Placing your ranged units on the walls is a surefire way of getting themselves killed if the enemy has range superiority. Although if they've got rattling gunners, that might work in a brilliant fashion. Rattling gunners are useless at attacking walls. Hilarious. A single stick with a steel tip is better than well-forged warp stone projectile, which is what the rattling gunners are using to shoot. So yeah, the first time around didn't go so well. The second time around, well, this is how most sieges end up being fought in OF1. Really, no joke. You bring a ranged army, you do this. Or you bring a melee army, you smash down the gates, the ranged defenders, and just end up being completely and utterly useless. Because that's the thing. And at least here they have relatively decent ground. We've seen how the AI handles, or how units handle in choke points. And all Tyrion needs to do here is just go in, finish the job. The enemy army has been significantly reduced in power. And this is again in a situation where they have more numbers. Granted, as the player, you are probably going to find yourself outnumbered in a lot of situations in these kind of sieges. Now, here's a thing you need to know about this. When you're fighting a siege on the campaign map, you don't need to win the battle. You just need to do damage. Like, if you find a full strong enemy stack in a settlement and you've got the full ranged army, that's amazing for you, because you are going to be able to do an enormous amount of damage to it before the full-on field battle is fought. Or you can, let's say you have enough movement points, you can go launch an attack, expend all your ammunition, do a ridiculous amount of damage, like I did here, and then withdraw. It becomes a draw. You abandon the siege, you go back up again, you attack again, you do more, you get full ammo replenishment, you do this again and again, you wipe the enemy out. It's such a tedious, terrible, broken system. And it's because, well, one, range just doesn't work very well. 2, AI doesn't work very well in sieges. 3, the sieges themselves, the settlement types, design, all that, don't help the defender a lot. And crucially, if you're the attacker as a ranged, your range just becomes useless in the settlement, in the siege. Like, if you get past those gates with gunpowder units, with ranged units, with crossbows, with bows, you're just going to suffer ridiculous losses. Far better to park your army outside the settlement and kill everything inside of it, because AI is going to defend the outer walls. Far better to do it. It is so boring, tedious, broken, badly designed, you name it. It's been like this for a while, don't get me wrong. It has been like this in Total War for a while, in Warhammer for a while. Don't get me wrong on that. It's not necessarily something new, but it's like, you want to talk about issues in the game? Yeah, here are issues. Here are issues. Shit gunpowder, shit sieges, broken range. The range thing is, like, takes the cake. The gunpowder attack behavior takes the cake. My brain hurts when I think about it. But yeah, that's where we're at when it comes to it. These kind of things need to be improved upon. That's how I feel about it. You may feel free to disagree. Do so. I'm sure there are plenty of people who don't care for any criticism of their beloved game. You know what? My view is, you like something, just because you like something does not mean it's perfect. Hell, criticizing things means you care. Apathy is the worst thing. I care about Total War. I've been playing it, holy crap, since Rome 1 came out. It's been a lot of years. Long time. So I've been playing since Rome 1. I do care about this series. I'm a big fan of history. I spent a lot of time researching history while playing these games. You know, I started reading about Napoleon when Napoleon Total War came out. Like, I read a lot about Napoleon because Napoleon Total War came out. Things like that. So I do care about this series, and this is not okay. You can justify it however way you want, but this is not fine. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, enable notifications, and stay tuned for more. I'm sure there's more to it, but these are some of the main issues. I'm curious to see what else I'll discover.